this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amy, would you take a roll call, please?
Yes, Mrs. Talby,
Here.
Mr. Gilbert, Mr. Detzel, Mr. Heather,
Here?
Mr. Dietzold.
Here.
Sorry.
We'd like to start our meetings with the reading of the mission statement. The Northwest Local School District will create a responsive learning community where all students are valued, challenged, and guided along a pathway to success. Need a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Chris,
Yeah.
I'm gonna,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna motion.
Okay. Okay, so I seconded and, or I made the motion and Matt
Matt
seconded.
seconded.
Okay. Okay, there it is. Okay.
What are you making your?
Report.
With the, being the summer, I don't have anything to report this evening.
All right. And no Butler Tech updates that you're aware of?
None tonight.
Legislative update?
Yeah, Nicole, a couple things. First of all, the backpack bill did pass, and it is signed into law. And there's actually no limit on who qualifies. This is for the voucher thing, which is a good thing that people have choices, but a bad thing because it's going to ultimately hurt public schools, which are, some are hurting right now. The article that I was reading about it says that it's only an issue in urban areas. Rural areas don't have charter schools. So it only affects the Cincinnati, the Columbuses, the Clevelands, the Daytons. And we've had, a number of kids opt to go to that, but now that everybody's going to get the voucher, and I believe it was $7,500. Is that right, Amy? Do you know?
84 for up through 8th grade, and then less for high school.
Okay, all right, so 8,400, that's a lot of money, and I think that, the way things are going, and I told Nicole this, in 25 years, I think big corporations will ultimately be running the public schools, just like a lot of corporations have taken over running jails. I think it's just getting so complicated between private schools, charter schools, homeschooling, public schools, that something's going to have to change. But anyway, we've been talking about the backpack bill forever, and it is law. Second thing I wanted to mention, and final thing, is that the Akron City School Board, which is not known to be a very conservative school board, voted to ban cell phones because of the problems that they bring with discipline and other issues from morning until at the end of the day. They have a thing where the kids will be locking up in some kind of pouch thing, and when they leave, they'll unlock the pouch through some kind of like what you see at the department store when you have something and they put a wand over it and that deactivates the burglar thing or the theft thing, something like that. So we're seeing some schools just deciding that cell phones have not been a good thing. And so I thought I would mention that, and that is it.
And just to piggyback off of what the voucher piece, the vouchers are only available to families who are at 450% of the poverty level. If you're above 450% of the poverty level, there is a guaranteed minimum, but it's less than the initial amount.
Okay, so, but that 450% of the poverty level, Daryl, would be like $120,000 a year.
It's a little over $135,000 for a family, I think.
A
If
four.
I remember the number correctly.
That's some serious, because it
Yeah.
used to be you had to be at the poverty level or below.
Right.
So they've just increased the pool of people who can take it. One final thing, if I can add it, in regards to the numbers, right now there's 56,000 kids on vouchers in Ohio, and I'll be curious to see where we're at in 2 or 3 years. And there's 50,000 or so that are homeschooled out of 1.2 million students. So,
And in that same budget bill, they were, in the public school sector, they were phasing in the fair school funding formula. And so we're in phase 2 of a 3-year phase-in that is not fully funded yet, but the vouchers are fully funded right now.
okay, so, and what are you hearing from administrators, fellow superintendents?
There's a lot of frustration that we've been working with legislators about trying to work on the fair school funding formula. We're still getting phased in for public education, but the vouchers were fully funded right out of the gate.
Okay.
And so we've been talking to legislatures and trying to advocate for full funding for public education as well.
And that's where the slowdown is?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you, Daryl.
Thanks, Chris. A report from any employee?
Yeah. Okay. Oh. Can I put it under board items? I thought it was when you started the consent.
We'll do it then.
Any report from employee organizations?
Not tonight.
And we do have one community comment. Diana Bradley, it's the only community comment. Oh,
My comment is in regards to the pending change I believe that you're going to vote on today in regards to updating the policies, specifically when it comes to the cell phone usage in the school system. I'm not sure exactly how long ago it was, but there was a board meeting here previously that I attended where we had several administration, I believe students and parents who also stated their concerns with the request from the board as far as making modifications to the current cell phone policy. The overwhelming response from the community was that the policy that currently stands as far as cell phone use in school was not an issue. Unfortunately, the board who represents the community is not listening to the community or not adhering to the requests and looking to do something different than what the community is requesting, as well as the administration who lie on the board for their trust to support them. From the administration specifically, I heard comments of, we're not interested in having to police students with their cell phones as far as if they're breaking a policy, a different policy, an alternate policy on having, what do we do as far as having to remove these phones from them or having to go through spending their time to discipline and alter their day. It's just one more thing that they have to do. There was also what I thought was a very poignant comment that a lot of cell phones now are used for medical situations and medical tracking, even at elementary level and middle school, because I understand this policy is primarily focused on there. And so my question is to the board is, what is the alternate policy to take in consideration the medical needs of the students? And then if you do have an alternate exception for someone with medical needs, how do you buy that for students who don't have a medical need and saying, well, this student's allowed to use it for X, Y, and Z reason, and that student's not. So you have a difference in how the students are treated. And then as far as the comment today about Akron having an alternate policy of banning cell phones, my request would be to also share information about model schools or schools that we're actually trying to model as far as like their academics and what their policies are as far as school, as far as cell phone usage. Not just a random fact or statement about a cell phone policy. Use it with percentages of, in the state of Ohio, this many schools have a ban or a alternate policy with cell phones. And these are some model schools that have stellar, A's and B's as far as their ratings that we don't have. And these are their policies on a percentage-wise. So 10% of state of Ohio have this rating, and then this is their policy. So that's my statement. My request obviously is for the board not to alter the current policy until they have further information regarding this.
Thank you.
Chris, you make a motion?
Okay, Nicole, this has been on the board 14 years, but this is the first time I've made a motion to change this superintendent's consent items. The one thing I would like to add is exactly what Ms. Bradley had brought up, that the board consider and hear from our two high school administrators who happen to be here tonight regarding the cell phone policy. So I would like to make a motion that we amend the consent items to include the cell phone topic and the possible limiting of their usage during the school day in all of our schools.
What would be the language that you would want us to amend it to?
Okay, that the elementary, middle school, and high schools, I'm going by memory here, so students at those schools are no longer allowed to have during the school day any communication devices, i.e. cell phones, and must surrender them to their locker upon arrival in the morning, and may retrieve them at the end of the school day from their lockers, period. Of course, teachers, educators will have cell phones, so there's somebody who can communicate in the case of an emergency.
So are you asking that there's discussion about it, not that we're taking a vote on something around that?
Well, I asked that we amend it, and then during the discussion, that's why Aaron and Nadia came tonight. I'd like to hear from them. If they tell me it's not a problem, then maybe I'm the one that's barking up the wrong tree. But everything I hear from students, former teachers, and teachers is it's a big problem. Students use them to cheat, communicate. They're playing on their cell phones. People are addicted to these things. I work in psychiatry. I have patients that are fully aware that they're addicted to their cell phones. Heck, sometimes I think I might be. Need to go into treatment. But, so yeah, I would like to hear at least go that far from our two high school principals. So I don't know what else I need to say.
So this would be the motion to amend the agenda to add this item. So this is where there could be discussion, and then we would determine whether or not this has support for a motion and a second, and if not, then it would kind of die on the vine.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just
So
to clarify, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, the motion is just
To
to
amend.
discuss it,
Yeah,
not to.
His
ban
motion
cell
is to
phones.
add this to the agenda, which would then, so the first vote would be, does the board who's here want to add this to the agenda? And then if you guys agree to add that to the agenda, you would be voting later in the agenda to approve it as a new policy. But I'll clarify that currently on the agenda for tonight, we have all of our codes of conduct for all of our buildings with a cell phone policy that we worked with all of our administrators over the summer to develop that has a consistent one for elementary and middle school. And then the one for high school is based on red, yellow, and green zones, with red zones being in all classrooms unless the teacher says that they can use it. They're one-to-one for most devices, so most times they don't need it. And they would be red in bathrooms, offices, and then green at lunchtime. So that's what's in the in the packet to vote on later with the code.
The full consent.
Yeah, what you're asking for is to add this to the agenda so that we would vote on those codes of conduct, approve those, and then if this made it onto the agenda, you would vote on this, and then that would replace it if it passed.
Okay.
So we currently have the one that was developed by the administrators, and then we can talk to the administrators now, and then you guys will decide whether or not you want to move this onto the agenda, and then later you would decide whether you want this to replace what's already there.
Okay, well, I've made the motion, so I don't have 4 people here, but it's going to depend on both you guys to,
And if you guys want to discuss it, we can discuss it.
I mean, I would love to hear from our experts, our principals on their thoughts, but I also think this needs more research and discussion. Just from me as a board member, I'm not willing to ban cell phones based on just a quick conversation or decision. I'd like to hear from them and do my research on my own before I would make any kind of decision. I'm not in the schools every day to know. The medical was one thing that I had listed as well as a concern of eliminating them altogether. There's a lot more to it than just taking them away,
A lot
in
of
my
our students who
opinion.
have medical needs have individual plans that would be an accommodation that would be in the plan for students who have significant medical needs.
and you're probably talking about like glucose monitoring. That's about the only thing I know the cell phones are useful for. But,
So I kind of concur with, Nicole and what she just stated, notwithstanding the fact that there's only 3 of the 5 board members that are here this evening to,
well, the time is of
Maybe.
the essence because
But-
school's starting in 5-6 weeks,
the
4 weeks.
next meeting, August 7th, 3 weeks.
It'd be too late to,
And Chris did let me know that he was planning to make this motion tonight, earlier today, so I did reach out to Aaron and Nadia, who were able to be here tonight. So if you two would like to come up and just kind of share your thoughts about why the recommendation for the high schools is there and what you guys are planning to do, and why that was something that you were looking for.
So should I, mean, we
Yeah.
kind of, already kind of like gone a little bit out. I mean, I'll second your motion, and we're in the discussion phase
Okay.
of your motion to place the item on the agenda.
Okay?
Okay.
Do I need to do anything?
Not yet.
No.
So
Thank you
if
for
you guys would
coming.
just share what's on the agenda and why you were asking for the policy that's there.
Thank you.
Good evening. We met as an administrative team early in the summer and came to a consensus of areas where cell phones can and cannot be used. We agreed on the classroom not using it unless it's for instructional purposes, and only to be used really at lunch. And so I do understand the concern. However, to completely take the cell phones in a climate where a lot can go wrong in a school, I would like for kids to be able, God forbid, if anything were to happen, I would at least like them to be able to reach out, call 911. We do have kids that use their cell phones for glucose monitoring and things like that. But I would like them to be able to reach out in case of an emergency. We don't have phones, landlines in the classroom. That concerns me. But other than that, I think really what it boils down to is continuing to build capacity with our teachers in reference to classroom monitoring. Cell phones will always be an issue if class is not managed effectively, as will anything. The computers that they have in reference to the one-to-one, that can just as well be an issue. They can chat on those things, they can watch videos, they can do all of those things. I think part of it comes with effective classroom management. in reference to building the capacity and supporting our teachers in that way, and also holding the students accountable. I do certainly understand, but to completely take the cell phones away is a bit discomforting to me as an administrator. We did agree in the summer on what would be good for both schools, and we aligned on that matter.
I would echo exactly what Mrs. Hall said beautifully, not only with the safety concerns, with the health concerns, but I think what Ms. Bradley mentioned, I think it was about a year ago we were here and talked about the same thing. And, you know, I love working at a high school because I feel like it's my job, not only for academics, but we are here to prepare you for real life. So this is another skill that we need to continue to work with our students on. Yes, there are some students who misuse it and have it out when they shouldn't, but that's a skill, a life skill that we are needing to teach, so that when they go to college and they're sitting through a lecture, that is what we are preparing them for. When they go to work one day and they're sitting with their boss, that's one thing that we're preparing them for. So I think for various aspects, the plan that we came up with, I think is a great place to start. If you looked at our discipline data from this past year, you would not see a lot in regards to cell phones and the misuse of cell phones. When I started as an assistant principal, what seems like many moons ago, it was skyrocketed because anytime a cell phone was out, it went to discipline. So our numbers, if you could compare the two when cell phones were banned at one time, are dramatically different. So along the lines of all the things that we've discussed, as well as the discipline numbers, I would encourage really a lot more investigation regarding this matter before taking further steps to change it. So.
What's the policy on hallway usage? Is there no hallways at all, right?
Well, we decided when Erin and I talked, it was something that, for me, no hallway usage for her. She wanted to give her kids the liberty to use it because that's part of what we are preparing them for. When they go to college or on a job, they will be able to use their cell phones, you know, while they're walking in on a job and things of that nature. For me, I just wanted to get our building under control a little bit more. It may be a difference in the buildings. She may not have the issues that I'm having. So I wanted to make sure that I was consistent with what we started out. And that doesn't mean that I don't see kids with cell phones in the hallway. We do. And we can't get to everybody in the hallway when we're there. But primarily, that's something that we discussed in depth, and for me, I support what she's doing in her building, and I want to make sure that, you know, when we have discussions, she and I will call and talk about things, and if it's something that I disagree with, we'll talk about it. If it's something she disagrees with, we talk about it. But every house is different, and so for me, just in that vein, I want to make sure that I continue with the work that I started, just because I don't have the historical context that everybody else does here, and so I don't want, you know, my kids to get so far out of line, but they can have them in lunch, and I support that. And for instructional use, I support that, because sometimes the teachers will put them in their lesson plans and let me know, Mrs. Hall, we're going to use them today, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. Again, it goes back to building the capacity. We're working really hard on that, building the capacity and training our staff up in reference to a little bit stricter expectations in the classroom. And I think that this year you're going to see some effective changes, because we've been working on that, communicating with one another in reference to how we want to handle that in our buildings.
We are going to tweak ours a little bit this year towards Mrs. Hall. During the bell changes, the 4-minute bell changes, we will allow cell phones in the hallway as a green zone. But if a student were to go to the restroom in the middle of the bell, they cannot have their phone out, because what we see is that when it's I understand, there's issues, but that's, again, we need to be using our time effectively, so that's one area we feel like that's a place where we can coach our students, so when you're in the middle of a 47-minute bell, you need to be going to the bathroom and coming back as if you were stepping out of a meeting, not taking the time to make some text messages or whatever it might be. So that is gonna look a little different for this year. And the other thing too is we share students, so we don't wanna make our policies dramatically different so that when our kids switch and my kids go to Casmel, that they have different rules to follow. So we are taking that step to kind of align a little bit more in hopes that we can kind of coach the kids up in a more reliable way, or to use their cell phones in a more reliable way.
Thank you. What about door pockets? I've witnessed a few teachers using door pockets. Do they find that useful? Is it just a handful that do? I know I saw the one when we walked to your building.
Some teachers do, but they're comfortable with creating that climate in their classroom, and we don't want to handcuff them. We want them to have the liberty to create the climate in their classroom that they see fit for their classroom. Others don't feel comfortable. One of the things that we communicated about is that we just don't want to walk in and see a kid, vehemently using their cell phone when instruction should be happening. We do know it's a problem, and we're going to be in constant communication and alignment as we begin to iron out some of the issues. But she's right, we do share kids, and so it shouldn't be drastically different. But I am glad that we've gotten on the same page in reference to several items. So we met a long time about that.
The door pockets, like Mrs. Hall said, some I feel like use a really good system. Some will use it for attendance purposes. Some are not comfortable using them because a lot of them are maybe placed by the door or somewhere that is not monitored. So there is a fear that if you ask every student to put their phone in the door pocket, or then at the end when kids are dismissed, a cell phone will go missing. So then it can create other issues. So we use it at teacher choice, and it works for some, and others do not feel comfortable exploring that as an option in their classroom.
Either way, the kids will know that, when we do our onboarding for the kids, when they come in, that, cell phones are off limits. They will hear that from us. If they get sent to the office, about that, then there's going to be high accountability because if they're on it, then we do know that they're not learning. So we do want to build that capacity again with our teachers for them to reach out, build that bridge with the parent, make sure that the parents understand what the expectations are on the campus, and support that effort with the progressive discipline that we've put in place in order to assist the kids. But they have to learn, the rules, and they can't do it. Just cell phones is just another educational tool, and how they use that is just a way for us to teach them through that process. So we want to make sure that we are able to continue to build that capacity as they grow and go, to be effective.
And at the high school level, it is written that the default is a red zone for every classroom. So teachers have the support from administration that classrooms should not be a place where cell phones are out, and that they have the administrative backing if they have a kid who is not following the directions with that.
I would be curious if you folks could come back mid-year with the new policy and the zones and all that and the enforcement thereof, and report back to us on if it is a problem. It just comes down to trying to straighten. We've had some discipline problems. It's not, back in the day when I was there, if you acted out, you went out in the hall and got your butt whipped. That doesn't happen anymore. And kids, I don't think are afraid of authority in many cases, or teachers like they were. There were some teachers that petrified me. We had several that were known to take no prisoners, if you will, back in the 70s. So I'm maybe still in a time warp, but my intentions are just to try to improve the classroom experience, which I think would result in better educational results and ultimately improve our schools. So I have nothing against cell phones. I turn around if I leave mine at my house and go get it, sometimes 2-3 miles away. Oh my God, my cell phone. But let's see how it goes, and let's hold off on any voting on.
Well, we got
I
the-
want to thank you both for coming
Yes.
last minute, and thanks for your leadership and expertise. And, you know, it's good to hear what last year, and you've talked and come up with some different things, and I'm sure that'll happen as the school year goes on. So thank you guys both.
Yeah, thank you very much, you guys.
So Nicole, we did have the motion in the second to add this to the agenda, so we'll just need to do the formal vote to see if it crosses the finish line to get on the agenda. So we'll just do the vote of, does the board want to add this to the agenda? Because we've had the motion in the second.
Well, can I withdraw it?
You would like to withdraw it?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
So if it was necessary, I withdraw my second as well. So I'm not sure how that works.
I've never had this happen before in all my years here.
Yeah.
So, okay, so,
Right. So with that, we're on to the consent items. So for tonight, there are, from personnel, 4 resignations, a retirement, 17 initial appointments, 1 change in status, and some very supplemental items, and then we have business items.
Yes, we have 2 donations, one from Pleasant Run Presbyterian Church to Northwest High School Athletics, and another from Clippard YMCA to Montfort Heights Elementary. We have several vendor contracts. Many of them are non-public schools, special education, nursing, and workers' compensation.
In the Impractical Transport.
Yes, we also have the annual resolution that's required for the payment in lieu for transportation services.
And then Student Services has on the handbooks for each building that we just referenced in relation to the cell phone policy, but it also has any of the other changes. We did add in our code of conduct several new codes for buses so that we can address specific issues that are on buses and track that data around that intervention. And then we also have a revision to the calendar for the 24-25 school year. So this is a year out, but it's adjusting for election cycles. So this is for the 24-25. We will push it out to parents after we get this school year started so that the 2 calendars don't mix. With that, the superintendent recommends the board adopt the consent items as listed.
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
Just, go ahead, man.
One question. So the playground equipment that's being donated from Clippard, what does that more specifically entail?
Basically, they are purchasing roughly $32,000 worth of playground equipment. There's several apparatuses, a couple of shelters to get the kids out of the sunlight, some benches, some trash cans, some things like that, other playground equipment.
And
They're
they,
adding to what they currently have on the playground? Or
Correct,
or they're
and we'll be
replacing
modifying
anything?
some and also adding more mulch and things like that in those areas.
and because they have a Wise Kids program there, this is that donation so that the program that they have also is being able to use the facilities and have the facilities that they would like it to be. So it's that partnership that's kind of led to this.
Will there other schools that have Wise Kids also be a part of this, or is it?
This one is specifically to Montfort Heights, and then we'll continue to work through the Y with other options when funding's available.
It's a very generous donation.
Yes.
Chris got a question on the transportation for the kids that aren't practical to transport. What does a family get, for reimbursement for, I guess, having to drive their kids to their private schools?
I'll have to look at what that is this year, but it's roughly $585.
Per student or per
Yes.
family?
Per student.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
And can you give an update a little bit on how transportation's going, or is that a part?
Sure.
Were you planning on doing that tonight?
Yeah, but we can do that now. It's fine.
Okay. I couldn't remember if that we were gonna bring that tonight, or just an
Yeah.
update on where they are with the new routes and.
Right. So as you recall, for the past several years, we've typically run about 73 routes. But due to the driver shortage, last year, the cancellations, We reduced that number down to about 64. Also, as you recall, we went through community engagement, so we were looking at ways to reduce the number of routes and reduce or eliminate cancellations. So we had three options. The first option was to make no changes at all and continue on the way we were and possibly have the same type of cancellations. Option 2 was to create the 4-tier system, which would reduce our routes. However, there was a drastic change in school start times and end times. And then we came up with option 3.
So the third option was changing the policy for the 1 mile to 2 miles.
Correct.
And then the feedback from the engagement was not favorable to either of those, and so we went back to the drawing board, and that's where the last option came
Yeah,
up.
so then we came up with option 3, which was to just reroute as efficiently as possible and also to consolidate the bus stops, which would require some students to walk further to the bus stops. Option 3 was chosen, so that's what we were moving forward with. So for this year, we are down to 58 routes in an attempt to have fewer cancellations. However, like I said before, some students will have to walk further to the bus stops.
But still within the legal
Yeah.
range.
Correct,
And
yeah.
not in an unsafe
Yeah.
crossing streets.
By law, they can walk up to half a mile to their bus stop.
Okay.
But we don't see or intend on any students walking that far.
And with those routes, we had senior drivers come in and drive the new routes.
So that was one of the concerns, was moving bus stops. You want to make sure that they are safe as possible. So for 2 weeks, we brought in several of our senior drivers, had them run every route, and then they would come back and give feedback, and then changes would be made to those routes or to the bus stops based on their feedback.
Okay.
So right now, unfortunately, we are sitting at about 53 drivers, 6 substitute drivers, which will be moved into a contracted route. And we have currently 3 driver in training who should be finishing up here fairly soon. However, as you know, that's not enough. We got to have a deeper bench in case we have illnesses and whatnot. And we are trying our best not to cancel any routes this year. So we're continuing to hire more drivers and make changes not only to attract drivers, but also to retain the existing drivers. We've held some hiring events and are planning to hold more weekend and after-hour events for those who can't make it during the workday. Right now, we have 3 scheduled. The first one will be this Saturday, July 22nd, from 8 a.m. to noon at the transportation office. The second will be on Thursday, August 3rd, from 11:30 till 1:30 here at our central office. And the third will be on Tuesday, August 8th, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. here again at our central office. As Daryl explained, also one of the issues that was a major factor in our driver dissatisfaction with their job was student discipline. So Mr. Yater, Mr. Gehring, and the building administrators worked extensively on focusing on student discipline on the bus. So there are some things to put in place. Drivers will see administrators stepping on their bus at least once every week, and they will go through every bus in a week. And the last thing I have is that bus passes are currently going out on Wednesday, July 26th.
So we're getting there. It looks like we'll have enough drivers, and if we had perfect attendance every day, we'd be fine. But
You figure out how to do that,
we,
let me know.
yeah. So we are working on building that bench. So hopefully we can get some more drivers through our next 3 events.
With those events, do you share that with like Green Township and Corning Township community centers so they can print stuff out and hang it up or announce it at meetings and?
Yeah, we'll send it through every avenue we have.
Okay.
And we gain a lot through social media,
Yeah,
things like that, so.
okay. Will that one
and-
be posted? I know it
Yeah.
hasn't been yet.
Yeah, it'll go out in the next day or so. We have
Okay.
better better attendance when it's shorter notice because people, it's too much of a lag time.
It's fresh in their mind.
And we do targeted ads, so it really targets local demographics. So it's not going to Columbus, it's staying in our geographic area.
Okay.
In the last event fair that we had, we gained the most candidates from that 11:30 to 1:30 time slot, so we went back to it again.
Okay. Well, appreciate it. Thanks for
Mhm.
the update and time put in to try to fix that.
So I did one more thing, just to elaborate on. So when it comes to medical accommodations, is that something that would need to be in the policy, or medical accommodations is something that can be,
It's already in our policy under our 504 and students with disabilities sections, so all
Right,
of those
that's kinda what
accommodations
I
would go
expect.
through that.
right, so it would fall under that part of it? And the accommodations will be made?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there's accommodations made in all areas of our school district.
Yeah, we have individual health plans. If it's just a physical issue, we have students with disabilities, we have students on a 504. So we have all variety of different plans based on the student individual needs.
Thank you.
This is 3-0.
And before we move on, we do want to take a moment and pause and introduce one of our new administrators. Ms. Erin Ferrante is here. She was approved at our July 10th meeting, but we wanted to make sure that she had a chance to be introduced to the board. Erin is going to be the assistant principal at Pleasant Run Middle School. And she is a proud graduate of Miami, where she received her bachelor's in middle childhood education and her master's in educational leadership. She did serve as a dean of students last year at Pleasant Run Elementary and looks forward to continuing her working in the Pleasant Run community at Pleasant Run Middle School. She's had different roles throughout her educational tenure, and her entire tenure, I will say, has been at Northwest. She's been a science teacher at Corey Middle, a remote education coordinator, and then most certainly recently at Pleasant Run Elementary. And through her experiences in the classroom and the community at Corey Middle and Pleasant Run Elementary, she's taken on various leadership positions, and so inside the classroom and outside the classroom. And so we're excited for Erin to join the administrative team at Pleasant Run Middle School. So welcome, Erin.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Good luck. Let us know if there's anything we can do to support you.
Thank you.
Amy?
Good evening. First, I'd like to ask the board to dispense with reading of and approve the regular meeting minutes from June 26th and the regular meeting minutes from July 10th, as well as we need to approve change funds for our athletics and food service for the fiscal year as we're gearing up to get ready for our events and school days. And then our financial report for the month of June. This is our year-end financial report. We ended the year with our all funds balance of $76 million and our general fund unreserved balance of $46 million. And this was about $200,000 more than what we were projecting on our 5-year forecast. Our revenues for the year came in at $102 million, or at 100% of our projections, as well as our expenditures were at $93.9 million, or at 98%. But when you add the year-end encumbrances, it does bump it up almost to 100%. Our invested weighted average return was 3.77%, and our list of monthly bills, we had our routine monthly bills, as well as we have our annual bus replacements, some textbooks, Colerain High School renovations, AP exams, and some auxiliary and grant payments. So with that, I'd like to ask the board to approve our fiscal consent items as listed.
So moved.
A second.
Any discussion? Are we bus replacements, just a cycle, average cycle that? each
Yes, because
year?
our permanent improvement fund has a $500,000 bus replacement fund within it every
Mhm.
year. And so that used to get us 5 buses. I think it now gets us 4. And almost the fifth, we save it for the next round, but they're also behind in delivery. So I think this is paying for the.
Yeah, we
previous
actually
year.
just received the buses that we ordered a year ago.
Hmm.
So we're getting ready to do it again.
So we getting some money back?
Are
Extra
they
interest.
dealing,
Just go up in
dealing
price.
on them, Chris?
No.
Well, the value of the buses today is probably a lot more than what we paid a year ago, am I right?
Yes, they are. They're going up considerably.
So Chris, your average school bus, that we see driving down the street, brand new, with, shiny tires and everything, what kind of money are we talking per bus?
About 98,000.
I mean, heck, cars are 50,000, so it doesn't strike me as too crazy.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah, thank you, Amy.
Passes 3-0.
The other personnel item, we will move to our next agenda, simply because we need more of the board members here to vote on that. Then the resolution to award the contract. Chris, do you want to introduce this one? It's the resolution to award the bid. This is the pavement maintenance that we talked about before, that we did not take the first round of bids because they were incomplete or 40% above the initial price. So this is the second round of awarding the contract, and we do have, through the bidding process, we have an appropriate bid that we can actually move on with. So this would allow us to continue to move forward with that maintenance, which is the 3 newer elementaries because of that preventive maintenance cycle that we're trying to stay on. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I was going to say there was some verbiage there, Jeff.
So the superintendent recommends the board accept the recommendation of the architect and award the base bid and alternates to the project to the lowest responsible bidder in compliance with section 3313.46AC of ORC and any other authorizing provisions of law contingent upon compliance with all conditions to the contract execution.
Oh, need a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? Passes 3-0.
The next one is a curriculum item to adopt a new modern world history textbook. With all of our textbooks, these go through the approval process where we engage with the teachers, look at the curriculum, look at different options. This one is actually just the exact same textbook, just a newer copyright date. So that's why it's for action tonight. It's just updating the version of the textbook. So with that, the superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the adoption of the new edition for the 23-24 school year as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Passes 3-0.
So we have some more items so that we can close one year and start another year. And the first item is to accept the fiscal year final amended certificate of estimated resources as approved by the Hamilton County Budget Commission for $205.7 million. So ask the board to approve that.
Motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Passes 3-0.
And finally, we need to accept our official certificate of estimated resources for fiscal year '24 as approved by the Hamilton County Budget Commission for $229.6 million.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
We do have a couple of items tonight for information. So we have 2 textbooks. I'll let Brenda introduce those.
Good evening. In partnership with the teachers from both high schools, we have a recommendation for new textbooks, both print and digital resources for American history, American government, and for our new AP seminar English course. So Ms. Doblinger worked with the teachers. We had the books available this evening. We'll have them again before we ask for a vote at the next meeting, and we are just presenting this for information tonight to give you the heads up that it's coming.
Brenda, could I take the American history book home?
Yes, we could share that with you.
Okay, thank you.
And then we do have from Student Services our annual harassment, intimidation, and bullying summary. This is for information. These are items that have been brought to administration's attention from either the parent or a student who filled out the formal complaint form in the back of the student handbook. Part of that was what you approved tonight. That form and that process is in there. We have a lot of things that our administrators deal with on a daily basis that don't come up on this report. These are only the ones that are the formal reports. And you can see on there that by building there are a variety of reports that have been made. Some have been deemed their allegations that have been verified, and some are non-verified. So this triggers an investigation and a letter to the parent letting them know the outcome of that. But again, this doesn't represent all of the issues. A lot of them are dealt with informally without hitting this process, but that information is there for you. And if you have questions, let me know.
Great. And thank you guys for bringing the textbooks early and having them out there for everybody to look at.
And then just a couple of things for an update. We do have Brian and Tanya here from Transportation who helped provide the information for tonight's update, and I just want to take a moment and acknowledge them. Yolanda is out of town, or she would have been here too, but they've been working all summer to make sure that the routes are as viable as possible, and that they've been working a ton behind the scenes. So I just want to take a moment and say thank you to both of you for everything you're doing. It has not gone unnoticed with how much you've put in this summer to prepare for next year, and it's going to pay off. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. When you solve the attendance, well, we can solve that for every company and.
We'll go on the road at that point.
Yes, yeah. Well, I
then-
appreciate you guys and all your efforts and listening to the drivers and the staff and the parents, and I think I'm excited to see how that we start off the school year with transportation. Fresh start.
Yep.
Thank you, guys.
And then just a couple of important dates. We do have our annual Health and Safety Fair at Northgate Mall on August 9th from 9 to noon. It's our annual event where we have different vendors there, school supplies, so that's always a great event. We always have student groups performing, so just getting that on everybody's radar, August 9th. And then just to reiterate the hiring events we have coming up, the Saturday hiring event, which is this Saturday at Transportation, is a transportation-only hiring event. So we're going to be looking for drivers, mechanics, and bus assistants. So all are welcome. And then our event on Thursday, August 3rd and Tuesday, August 8th, that will be for continuing to look for more transportation support, but other positions throughout the district as well. So health assistants, different classroom assistants, MD assistants working with students with disabilities, intervention assistants working with students on reading and math skills. So those other hiring events are for all open positions, but this Saturday is transportation only, so just to clarify that. And we are excited to get some more people in the door.
Thanks, Daryl.
I have one question for you. Can you just give us a brief update and community on the master's facility plan?
Yeah, so we currently have a process going with master facilities. Obviously, the board voted twice to go to the community for a master facility plan. Both of those bond issues did not pass. So we're going back to reconvene our master facility committee, and we are going to continue our engagement. We know that some of the things that were stumbling blocks for our community, obviously one big one was the high school. People were wanting to know, are we going to 1 or 2? We don't have a final answer on that, so our committee that we have now is working in multiple areas so that this fall we will kick off an engagement process where there will be a survey, but also in-person engagement strategies as well, so that we can really get a broad base of understanding of what the community would like to see from a facilities perspective. And then that committee will be going back and looking at phasing and engagement to make sure that we can merge those ideas with what's feasible for our facilities, and from a funding perspective, what's viable from a district perspective and a district perspective involved in the state program. And then we'll have multiple work sessions coming up with the board where that group can be in front of the board to have some two-way conversation about what they're thinking and seeing and what you're thinking and seeing, so that there's ongoing two-way communication between the board and that committee. And then in the winter, around January, February, we'll be in front of the board again with a new master facility plan, and then we'll have conversation with the board about funding that plan. So that's coming, so there will be more engagement and more publicity around that, so that we can make sure that everyone is aware it's happening and has an opportunity to have their voice heard. So that's, more is coming, but we're in the initial stages of revamping that process.
So, yeah, so I'd like to clarify that, because there's been some, I've been hearing things, out in the community. There's an election going on right now that you can vote, and it's August 8th special election. There's one issue on there, issue 1, do your research on that. But there is not anything from the school district on the ballot for August 8th. And there's not any plans for the November election from the school district to place anything on the ballot.
Yeah. We would have.
We would have had to have already started that process, and
Yeah.
there would have been something on the agenda tonight, right?
There's nothing in
Yeah.
terms of a bond or operating or any kind of issue that is going to be on any fall election from the school district. We would have already had to have some of our resolutions done by now, so there's nothing for the fall.
Right. So I've just seen, people assuming that, we're immediately coming back to the voters from the spring and last fall, and immediately coming back this fall, and that's just not the case.
Yeah.
Because as Daryl explained, we're going through the process with our Master's Facility Plan Committee and reevaluating steps going forward. So
Thanks.
that's all I have.
Is that your comments too?
Yeah, I'm not going to have anything to add on my, board comments. So.
Nicole, no, just, the only thing I've got is how fast the summer has gone. And the grand kickoff, I know you told us, is what day is it, Daryl?
It's the first day back with staff, August 14th.
14th?
Yeah, and so our staff will be back on August 14th.
Okay. Hopefully it'll be as sunny and as mild as it was last year. That's
It's gonna be
perfect.
perfect.
That's all I have, Nicole.
Just want to thank our principals and everybody else that came tonight. Congratulations. Malachi Snow, I don't know if we mentioned this last time, but he was Enquire's Runner of the Year, which is awesome. And Bryce Sears is wrestling, he wrestles for Corning. He's wrestling in a tournament, a national tournament, and today advanced by pinning Arizona's state wrestling champ to move on. So good luck to both of them. And yeah, just continue to enjoy your summer, and we'll be back before you know it.
Mhm.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second to move to executive session.
So moved.
We need to,
Yeah.
Yeah, so the
Specify
board
the
will move
reasons.
into a motion to conference with an attorney concerning disputes that are subject to pending or imminent court action, preparing for or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning compensation or other terms and conditions of employment, and to discuss the evaluation of the treasurer. So the superintendent recommends the board move into executive session as listed.
Get my son moving again.
in a second.
That passes 3-0. And just a reminder that when we return from executive session, no further business will be discussed.